Avengers Endgame is one of the biggest cinematic events of the year, both in impact and runtime. Coming in at just over 3 hours in length, this movie has more references and winks to the audience than perhaps any other MCU film. Hidden under some terrific acting and incredible fights, these are 10 things you didn't notice in Avengers Endgame.
I like this one.
After Avengers Infinity War premiered, viewers realised that trailers didn't actually reflect the events of the movie. Several characters were edited in and out of frames, and lines of dialogue were added to mislead viewers. Knowing this, many suspected that the Endgame trailers would also contain some misleading information. This proved true when Black Widow's hair was drastically different than in her trailer appearances. Still grieving at the loss of her loved ones, Black Widow stopped dyeing her hair, leaving it a mix of red and blonde 5 years after the snap. Not only is this new look super cool, it also symbolises her inability to move on from the tragedy and her failure to prevent it. However, it makes sense that her fierce new do wouldn't be in any of the trailers. Endgame's 5-year time skip is one of the biggest twists in the movie, and one that few people saw coming. Black Widow's multicoloured hair would have given away the jump forward in time, and it makes sense that the trailers would hide this possible spoiler. Although this continued trailer trickery will make viewers skeptical of MCU trailers going forward. Maybe Jake Gyllenhaal's Mysterio isn't actually going to be a baddie in Spider-Man Far From Home. There are a lot of emotional gut punches in Avengers Endgame. This movie revels in reminding its audience just how much they love these characters and how much these heroes are hurting. When Tony Stark sacrifices himself to defeat Thanos and his army at the climax of the movie, moviegoers across the globe teared up. A lot of those same attendees scratched their heads during Tony Stark's funeral though. As the camera pans between surviving characters, it lingers for just a moment on a young man that no one is quite able to place. This character is in fact Harley Keener, who first appeared in 2013's Iron Man 3. Although the Tennessee native hasn't played much of a role in the MCU following his introduction, he did help Tony fix his Iron Man suit in the third Iron Man film. Harley was also the first person Tony took under his wing, before the billionaire became a kind of father figure to Peter Parker. Even if Iron Man 3 was a solid film overall, it isn't the most popular in the MCU, so don't feel too bad about not recognising this somewhat obscure character. A dishevelled Thor poorly explaining the events of Thor: The Dark World was one of the funniest moments in Avengers Endgame. This joke worked really well because not many people saw the second Thor movie, and because it's maybe the weakest film in the MCU. Thor drunkenly giving a TLDR on the movie was one of the great and rare moments where the MCU makes fun of itself. However, there was a second reference to Thor: The Dark World as well. In Endgame, Loki briefly transforms into Captain America so that he can mock the first Avenger. While this is used to set up the brilliant Captain America versus Captain America fight later on, it also ties into a scene in the Dark World. While Thor and Loki are sneaking through Asgard, Loki briefly transforms into Captain America and mocks the character's patriotic premise. As Chris Evans cameos as a parody of Captain America in this scene, it's perhaps the best and funniest moment in an otherwise lackluster movie. It might be a little difficult now, but we can only hope that the Loki Disney Plus series features similar cameos so that even more actors can mock their MCU characters. Avengers Endgame isn't just filled with fun references to other Marvel movies, it also contains plenty of nods to other classic films. One of the most notable references occurs in the scene where Thanos walks through a field of crops and picks a ripe alien fruit. This moment encapsulates the Mad Titan's peaceful life as a farmer following his victory in Avengers Infinity War. This scene is also a reference to the movie Gladiator. After winning his former comrade's freedom in battle, the soldier Maximus succumbs to his injuries. His battle over, the gladiator envisions himself walking through a field of crops towards his family's home. In Gladiator, this moment symbolises the peace Maximus has finally found after a lifetime of conflict. Although the circumstances are vastly different between the two movies, it's still pretty cool to see Endgame referencing Gladiator. The movie knows that it's the latest cinematic event, and it's nice that it pays tribute to other massively influential films, although Maximus is far more deserving of his rustic paradise than Thanos. You also have to wonder what the spiky fruit vegetable Thanos picked tastes like. It kind of looks like a durian, so maybe savoury and sweet. Then again, it could just be a space tomato. Tony Stark and Steve Rogers' romp through a 1970s S.H.I.E.L.D. base was one of the most impactful moments for the two characters. Stark was able to have one more conversation with his late father and gain more closure on his untimely passing. Rogers was also able to gain a glimpse of his lost love, Peggy Carter, and reevaluate what's important to him personally. This sequence also contains a small reference that's meaningful to Ant-Man though. When Captain America tricks Hank Pym into leaving his laboratory, the audience briefly sees a strange silver helmet. This headgear appears to be solid metal and is vaguely shaped like the head of an ant. This helmet is a reference to Ant-Man's original costume. This version of the suit leaned much more heavily into Ant-Man's insect theme and the gaudier superhero costumes of the 60s. As Hank Pym was the first bearer of the Ant-Man mantle, it makes sense that he would also have a version of the first suit. It's a good thing that Scott Lang's suit doesn't have that helmet though. There is no way he could have eaten those tacos Hulk gave him with those mandibles in the way. Shortly after Avengers Endgame jumps ahead 5 years, we see a hologram meeting between Black Widow and some of the other surviving heroes. Nothing comes of it, but in this scene, Okoye mentions that a large earthquake is happening on the sea floor. Black Widow is eager to investigate the incident, but Okoye rightfully points out that there's nothing they can do about it and that the seismic event poses no immediate danger. It's kind of strange that this event would pop up and then be dismissed so quickly in Endgame though. That's why many Marvel fans are starting to theorize that this exchange was a setup for the introduction of the anti-hero Namor the Submariner. A mutant half-merman, Namor is the son of a fisherman and the princess of Atlantis. This puts him in a unique position in the Marvel universe, as he has few allegiances and often fights against whatever group is wrong in a single moment. Fans have wondered for a while now how Namor would appear in the MCU, and this seems like the beginning of his introduction. With the success of the DCEU film Aquaman, now is the perfect time for the MCU to premiere their own aquatic hero. We'll have to wait and see if he keeps the fish scale speedo in the movies though. One of the best things about the Marvel Cinematic Universe is how it manages to appeal a wide variety of people across different backgrounds. That's why it's incredible, but not necessarily unexpected, that ESPN's fantasy sports expert Matthew Berry cameoed in Avengers Endgame. Appearing as a S.H.I.E.L.D. agent accompanying the secret Hydra leader Alexander Pierce, Matthew Berry appears in the scene where the future heroes are trying to swipe the Space Stone, or Tesseract. While our future heroes come close, in the end Loki grabs the stone and warps away, presumably to the upcoming Disney Plus Loki series. Sure, Matthew Berry doesn't play a major role in the events of the film, but his cameo is still pretty fun. It's also a testament to just how big and appreciated the MCU is today. It's great that people from other entertainment fields are appearing in the franchise and that it has such a broad appeal. It would be nice if we knew if Matthew Berry's character was a part of S.H.I.E.L.D. or a Hydra sleeper agent though. Either way, he's probably the fantasy football champion of his office. Suck it! During their infiltration of the 1970s S.H.I.E.L.D. base, Tony Stark wears a snappy suit while Steve Rogers dons a military uniform. While this allows Rogers to easily navigate the base, eagle-eyed fans will spot a small reference in his attire. This uniform has the name ROSCOE stitched onto its breast pocket, which is almost certainly a reference to the comic book character Roscoe Simmons. In the comics, Roscoe Simmons takes up the Captain America mantle after Steve Rogers leaves the role and becomes the Nomad. After numerous characters fail to live up to what Captain America represents, Roscoe eventually earns Rogers' approval and receives training from Sam Wilson, otherwise known as the Falcon. Sadly though, Roscoe's stint as Captain America wouldn't go as smoothly as it did for Rogers. Roscoe's lack of superhuman abilities made it almost impossible for him to face off against Captain America's more powerful foes, and he was eventually defeated by the Red Skull. This forced Steve Rogers to don the Captain America costume once more, as he was afraid other possible heroes would suffer a similar fate in his absence. Although Sam Wilson did receive Rogers' iconic shield at the end of Endgame, this was a fun reference to another Captain America. Seeing the Falcon use the shield alongside his flight suit is sure to be incredible though. In the course of falling into a depression during Endgame's time skip, the first time the movie was referenced directly in the MCU, the franchise actually began with a connection to the film. The first villain in the series, the Ironmonger in the first Iron Man movie, is portrayed by actor Jeff Bridges. This very same actor also portrayed the dude in The Big Lebowski earlier in his career. Even if it's only a few. Now the only question is, what Coen Brothers movie will the MCU reference next? Probably Fargo, but that's only because No Country for Old Men is too dark.
Most you ever lost, the coin toss.
Ever since the original Iron Man film, Tony Stark has had to deal with an injury to his left arm. This wound became symbolic of the stress of his heroic activities and his inability to deal with his failures. When Thor Ragnarok made a point of saying that the Infinity Gauntlet was left-handed, many MCU fans connected the two pieces of information and thought that Tony would don the gauntlet someday. While that didn't quite happen, his injury did hint at his snap, but the event did symbolize his growth as a character. Tony Stark performed his snap with his right hand, which exemplifies the hero moving past his failures and hang-ups. Knowing full well that it would destroy him, Stark still performs the snap and saves the world from Thanos and his army. So, while it didn't play out exactly like fans thought it would, Tony Stark's snap was actually the perfect way to have the character leave the MCU. In a film full of heart-wrenching moments, this was one of the most intense. While it did validate one of the biggest MCU fan theories, most moviegoers were too sad in the moment to properly celebrate. They were too busy holding back tears, as Tony Stark showed everyone what it means to be Iron Man and the original MCU hero. So, what are some awesome details in Avengers Endgame that you noticed? Please let us know in the comments section below, and remember to like this video and subscribe to the Binger while you're down there. We have plenty more Avengers Endgame videos coming soon, so be sure to keep an eye out for those. See you next time.